Time for another underrated film, and this time we have Michael Mann's Manhunter, which is based off the novel Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. And apparently this was only called Manhunter because the studio had another film called something like Enter the Dragon that did terribly, and they thought people would think this was a kung fu film and didn't want, wanted a new name for the thing. So you might be familiar with Red Dragon because there's a version with Anthony Hopkins in, just called Red Dragon rather than Manhunter. It's based on the Thomas Harris novel, and I must have read that when I was about 12. So I read that well over sort of 10 years ago. So yeah, this is the version you might be more familiar with, the one with Anthony Hopkins in. I think Manhunter is the better film personally. Red Dragon is like a much bigger sort of budget version of it, done pretty much exactly in the style of Silence of the Lambs, and that's where the problem I think really lies with it. But I think Red Dragon in some ways is a closer adaptation of the novel Red Dragon, but Manhunter is just a much better film. So the basic plot of both of the films, but specifically Manhunter, is that the FBI are after a killer they've called the Tooth Fairy, who's murdering families every time there's a full moon. So he'll go into their house and murder them while they're asleep and sort of pose the bodies, and they need to stop him before the next sort of full moon, so before he kills again. And they hire, I think Will Graham his name was, and he used to be in the FBI, and he captured Hannibal Lecter, but was wounded when he did it, and he sort of quit service, and they sort of conned him into coming back because they needed help to catch this killer. What this does a lot better than Red Dragon is the character of Will Graham, that's played by Michael Petersen in Manhunter. He does it, a lot more like somebody who has a lot of psychological issues. So this guy's like a guy who's going to snap at any point. He could almost be a serial killer, and that's why he thinks like them. Whereas when Edward Norton played him in Red Dragon, it was a lot more flat. He was just very much, I'm a detective, whatever. So, Red Dragon isn't a bad film at all, it's just I think Manhunter is a lot better in that regard. Brian Cox plays Hannibal Lecter, who's only a side character like he's meant to be in this one. Because the problem with, after Silence of the Lambs was so successful, they kept making Hannibal movies rather than actually doing what, was in the novels, and Thomas Harris did the same thing as well, where he started, deciding he wanted to have Hannibal in the books more and more rather than just having him as a sort of minor side character. So he's played by Brian Cox in this movie, who plays him very different than Hopkins. I don't think I really prefer either one. Hopkins is sort of that much more sinister sort of villain, a bit over the top, whereas Brian Cox is far more like somebody you'd actually believe would be a killer, that wouldn't get caught. So yeah, that's Manhunter. This is a very 80s film, it's very stylized. They use Michael Mann uses lots of colours that apparently he based on Dario Argento's Suspiria, where he'll have like scenes lit in very odd ways, like entire blue scenes, entire green scenes, to sort of, I think, add to the mood really a bit of the movie. It's mostly all a synth soundtrack, which I think works very well in its favour a lot of the part, very creepy sort of synth music in the background. And a few actual like musical tracks, like they have Eye on the Butterfly in there for some reason near the end, but generally for the most part the music does work out very well, whereas Red Dragon has sort of a very generic sort of orchestral score you'll never really remember any of the music from. I can just remember a little bit of the main theme from it and that's it, but I can remember a lot more of the music in Manhunter. So yeah, in terms of like soundtrack, lighting, camera angles, they're really good in this, they're much better than Red Dragon. The acting's basically on par with Red Dragon. Some performances are better in Red Dragon, some performances are better in this, but I think for the most part Manhunter is the much better film. So it's very 80s if you watch it, so be prepared for that. Some people think it's aged horribly, some people think it's aged well. I really like it because it's sort of quite different. So, it's not an art style or sort of setting style you'll see a lot now, so it's, feels a product of its time, which is fine. I don't care if films age really when they're set in a very particular period. So that's Michael Mann's Manhunter. If you like films like The Silence of the Lambs, or you like a good sort of killer detective film, I'd look into Michael Mann's Manhunter. This is the Blu-ray that I got from Amazon. It was in free for £20, and this version does have the director's cut on it, because some people were complaining on reviews that some of the DVDs of this that it was missing a few of the scenes. They're only very minor bits, only like a minute or two of footage at most, but you know, it was just to keep the pacing a bit faster. But if you want the full version, this has, I think, it's just a director's cut on this, which is fine. There are some special features as well, but I haven't looked at those yet. So yeah, I'd recommend Michael Mann's Manhunter.